Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be showing you how to make this onesie, or whatever you call it. It has many names and the people call them different. I would usually call this something like a onesie or overalls, but it could be called a romper and other things. Okay, so I will be referring to this as a onesie. So this is an outdoor one. Okay, so it is bigger than usual. It is wider, so you have more space for the baby inside. We have a hood like this, and you can see this stitch right here. So it's a cluster single crochet stitch. It looks really nice. It gives it a nice little texture, and it's not difficult to make at all. So talking about the shape, so you can see it is widening up a little bit around the waist, or a little bit lower the waist, just to give it a little bit more space for the bottom part. And we have the end of the little legs like this, so you can pull it out. It becomes longer, but it gives it a fantastic shape. It looks really nice. And the same with the sleeves, and of course the hood. Okay, so the sizes that we will be able to make is 0 to 3 months. This is the size 0 to 3 months. In this tutorial I will be making a size 3 to 6 months. Now I have a 6 to 9 months size, so I've used this colorful yarn. You can see, just like that. Looks really interesting. And 9 to 12 months. So this is the biggest one. It is really quite big. So looks like that. Okay, so I added ears just to make it a little bit more fun. So you will be able to choose the size that you want to make. And just follow the chart for the sizes. I will explain everything as much as I can. The biggest thing will be probably just making sure that you are making the pattern correct. Everything else is just going to fall into places. Okay, so I think I have mentioned everything. Perhaps I should mention that this is Aran weight yarn or medium weight yarn, but it can be made in DK or lightweight yarn. So this one is in lightweight. It's much more work. You can even see the size difference for the pattern. So this goes really much faster than this, and it is much warmer. I actually have this yarn has some wool in it as well, and it's just much softer and warmer. Anyways, if you think that you would like to make one of these onesies, let's go on and have a look of what we are going to need for this project. Okay, so we are going to need a measuring tape in centimeters. Anything that you have will be absolutely fine. A needle to hide the tails. 4 stitch markers. You can have a few extra if you want to, but technically 4 is absolutely enough. Scissors, then buttons. You should need about 5 or 6. I have 6 just in case, but I will most likely, I think 5 should be enough for me. So any kind of buttons that you want to use, just make sure that they are quite big. These buttons that I have here are 3 centimeters in diameter. They can be approximately 2.5. Let me see right here what diameter is here. Yes, this is 2.5, and they are perfectly fine. Just not too small, okay? Because our buttonholes are gonna be quite wide. And then the hook. So the hook has to match our yarn. So firstly, I'm gonna talk about this, okay? So any sort of Aran or medium weight yarn is perfect for this onesie. I've got this 400-gram skein from So Crafty Aran yarn in color steel. Now you don't have to use the same yarn as I am using. Any kind of medium weight yarn or Aran yarn will be absolutely fine. I have this. It is a mix of wool and acrylic. It is very, very nice and soft. So like I said, choose anything you can get your hands on or whatever you like. It doesn't even have to have wool in it. This is completely up to you. The color, the brand, it just has to be a little thicker. It can be made in DK weight or lightweight yarn. So this is made in DK, in a slightly thinner yarn. I used 4.5 millimeter hook, so it can be made in this, but it comes out much thinner and it takes up a lot of yarn. Okay, so for this 6 to 9 months I have used up 400 grams, and it wasn't even enough. I had to finish my cuffs or the ends of the sleeves and the bottom of my little legs right here in just plain white yarn because I didn't have enough. So it can be made if you want to do this, but I would suggest you to get your hands on some thicker yarn. And I'm going to use 5.5 millimeter hook. You can use a 5 millimeter if you don't have a bigger one. I just want it to be a little bit softer, so I'm going to use 5.5. Okay, so how much yarn you're going to need? For the 0 to 3 months, I ended up using approximately 300 and a little bit extra. Okay, so I think it was about 310 grams. For the 9 to 12 months, I ended up using the whole thing, and I was really, really close. Like I had just a tiny little bit left. So you are going to need approximately 400 grams, okay, plus minus. So one skein should really be enough, and I will be making 3 to 6 months this time. So once you have your yarn, your hook, we will be able to start our onesie. So as you can see right here, I have the measurements, a little drawing that isn't that good, but it will give us an idea what is where and how wide or long it should be. And this is the 2 starting chains. Okay, so once you have everything ready, we can get started. Okay, so to start, for row 1, grab your yarn and your hook, and we can see right here the number of starting chains. Okay, so for 0 to 6 months, you want to start with 53 plus 1 chains, so technically it is 54. And for 6 to 12 months, we start at 61 plus 1, so 62 chains. As I'm making 3 to 6 months, this is my starting chain. So I'm going to chain 53 and then add 1 at the very end. That plus 1 is for turning. Okay, so put your hook in and start chaining. So I need 53 plus 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I will keep going until I have 53 chains. So I have 53 chains. Now we're gonna add the plus 1. So add 1 more chain for turning. So 1 more. In total you should have 54 or 62. Now have your stitch markers nearby. We are going to start our first row with single crochets. Okay, so we're gonna skip the very first chain that we just added, and into the second chain from the hook we're gonna start our single crochets. So 1 single crochet into the next chain, that is 2 into the next 3 and 4, and keep going until you have this number right here of single crochets. So 9, or if you're making a bigger size, 10. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 single crochet. So this number, the bottom number. Then you can see a little 1 right here. This is a corner. This is where we're going to do an increase, and we only do increases on single crochet rows. So into the next chain, put 3 single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. All 3 into that same chain. Now grab a stitch marker and place it into the second stitch from the hook. So the loop on the hook does not count. So this is the first stitch and this is the second stitch from the hook. And place your stitch marker in there. Then we're going to make this amount of single crochets at the side. So as I'm making it smaller, I'm gonna make 9. If you're making it bigger, you have 11. So starting from the next chain, I'm gonna start my 9 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 single crochets. So this number. Then we have our second corner. Into the next chain we put 3 single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Take a stitch marker and place it into the second stitch from the hook. So 1, 2. Then we have the back of our cardigan. So I have 13 single crochets and you might have 15 if you're making the bigger size. So starting from the next chain, I make 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Okay, so once you make that number of single crochets, we have our third corner. Into the next stitch we make 3 single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Stitch marker into the second stitch from the hook. 1, 2. Then we are on the other side or on the other sleeve, so 9 or 11 single crochets. I have 9. Starting from the next chain, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 single crochets. Our very last fourth corner. Into the next chain we put 3 single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Place your stitch marker into the second stitch from the hook. So 1, 2. And you should have this number of chains left. So I should have 9 chains or 9 single crochets. You might have 10. Starting from the next chain, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So exactly as it should be. Now I will have this posted on my Facebook page if you need a better look. For now, we do not need this paper anymore. So we have just finished row number 1, or repeat row number 1 with single crochets where we did the increasing. Okay, so next we're going to start our cluster stitch and single crochets. Well, this is where the little pattern comes in. So it is quite simple. We are going to start with chaining 1, and the beginning is always going to be the same until we hit that bottom of this onesie. So chain 1 and turn. The first 5 stitches are going to be back loop single crochets. So starting from the very first stitch, so you chained one, you skip that chain one, and right into the very first stitch into the back loop we make a single crochet, that is 1. The next one into the back loop is 2, number 3 into the back loop, then number 4 into the back loop, and number 5 into the back loop. So we will start and we will finish with 5 back loop single crochets. Okay, so this is going to be the very front edging. Next stitch is our little cluster. So you're gonna yarn over, go into the full stitch. We're not gonna use the back loops right here, okay? So go into the next stitch, catch your yarn on the other side and pull out. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops and stop. Now you're gonna yarn over again, go back into that same stitch, catch your yarn on the other side, pull it out. You have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and when you have 3 loops left, you're gonna yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So we have just crocheted 2 double crochets together, or a little double crochet cluster. Okay, into the next stitch we're gonna make a single crochet in both loops. Then again we make 2 double crochet cluster, yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, stop, yarn over, go into that same stitch, pull out your yarn, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and then pull through all 3 loops. Into the next stitch we make a single crochet. Then again our cluster, pull through, yarn over into that same stitch and pull through, yarn over, pull through all stitches. Now you can see I have my stitch marker in the next stitch. Okay, so we're not gonna do any increasing in this row. We're just gonna do cluster single crochet all the way around until we have 5 stitches left. Now once you come to your stitch marker and you take it out, the stitch that you put into in there, you're gonna have to put the stitch marker back in. The only difference is, right, so I'm gonna have a single crochet right here that I'm gonna have to mark. If you're making a bigger size, you're gonna have a cluster that you are going to mark. So for example, so the next stitch is marked. I'm gonna pull this out and I need to make a single crochet. So I put a single crochet in there, take my stitch marker and mark that stitch, the next stitch after the hook, because we did not do an increase, and it's a single crochet. Okay, and then I continue on with my cluster, single crochet, cluster, and so on. Now let's say you're making a bigger size and you make a cluster in that marked stitch. So once you make a cluster, you just mark that cluster stitch. That's the only difference. Okay, so I had it in my single crochet. Okay, so we need to keep the stitch marker in on the diagonal right here. Okay, so once you have your corner stitch made, you're just going to continue with changing these 2 stitches around. So cluster, single crochet, cluster, and single crochet, and so on until you get to your stitch marker. And here I am. The next stitch has a stitch marker, and I am going to put in again a single crochet in that stitch. And I'm gonna mark that. Now you should have all same stitches in the corners, okay? So if I had a single crochet in the first one, I'm gonna have single crochet till the end, okay? If you had a cluster stitch in that marked stitch, you're gonna have all clusters in each corner in that row, okay? And then you're just going to continue on with cluster, single crochet, and so on. You just swap these two stitches around all the way to the end of this row. Okay, so keep going. I will see you when we have 5 stitches left. Now I am at the end of this row, and I have actually 6 stitches left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the 6th last stitch should be a cluster stitch for everybody. Okay, so a cluster. And then the last 5 stitches are going to be back loop single crochets. So right after you make your last cluster, you go into the back loop of the next stitch and make single crochet. That is 1 into the next, into the back loop, 2 into the back loop, 3, 4, and 5. So we have just made our repeat row number 2. So just like that. Okay, let us start repeat row number 1 again. So just like we did the very first one, okay? So you are going to chain 1 and turn. The first 5 stitches are back loop single crochet. So starting from the very first one, you skip that single crochet, that chain 1 into the back loop, 1 single crochet into the back loop, 2 single crochets into the back loop. That's 3, 4, and 5. Then the rest are your normal single crochets into the full stitch, not just the back loop. So starting from the next one, just single crochet, 1 single crochet into each stitch until you come to the stitch marker. Where you have your stitch marker, you're going to take it out and put 3 single crochets in there. 1, 2, and 3. Mark second stitch from the hook, so first and second. Once you have 3 single crochets, you mark the second stitch from the hook, okay? When we have the pattern row, we mark the first stitch on the hook. I hope that makes sense, but it is very important to have the stitch markers in the right place. And then just continue on with 1 single crochet into each stitch until you get to your next stitch marker. Stitch marker out and 3 single crochets in there. So 1, 2, and 3. Stitch marker back into the second stitch. 1, 2, and continue on. So keep going. Make the other 2 corners, and I will see you at about the end of this row. Okay, so I'm finishing the row. I have my last cluster from the last row, or you can just count. So you have to have the last 5 stitches with back loop single crochet. So you can count it back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to there. It's normal single crochet. So I usually look that I have a single crochet on the last cluster right here, and then the rest are back loop single crochets. Again, it should be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. To start the next row, we're going to chain 1, turn, and we start with 5 back loop single crochets. Skip that chain 1 and starting from the first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Once you have the 5 single crochets, into the next stitch we start with a cluster. So right into both loops, double crochet cluster, and a single crochet into the next stitch. Again, cluster and single crochet, cluster, and single crochet. And then whatever you get in that marked stitch, so there is cluster this time for me, so I make a cluster. This was the marked stitch, and I put my stitch marker back into that stitch from the cluster. So the first one from the hook. Again, the loop on the hook does not count, so the first stitch. And then continue on according to the pattern. So single crochet, cluster, single crochet. Now the 2 corner stitches when you're making the pattern are going to change every time. So I had a single crochet the first time I did it in the corner, then the next time it's a cluster, then again single crochet, cluster, single crochet, cluster. So again, if you had a cluster stitch in the corner on the first one, you're gonna then have single crochet and then cluster, single crochet. So it will be changing every time we make a row with a cluster pattern. Okay, so keep going. I will show you one more corner just in case. And my stitch marker, and again I have a cluster in that marked stitch. And I place it back into that first stitch that I have just made the cluster in, and continue on with the pattern. And you can see now the pattern is really coming out, and you can see it on the other side. Okay, continue on. I'll see you at the end. So at the end of the row, you should have a cluster and then 5 stitches left, which is a single crochet into the back loop. That's 3, 4, and 5. And this is approximately how your first few rows should look like. Okay, so I'm going to quickly show you one more row again. It's a single crochet row. That means we have 3 single crochets in each corner. I just want everybody to be very comfortable with the pattern so we can keep going, and I don't have to tell you a whole lot about it later on. So single chain 1, first 5 are single crochets into the back loop. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. After you have those 5, we just make normal single crochets in the full stitch until we get to our stitch marker. Where the stitch marker is, take that out, 3 single crochets. 1, 2 and 3. Stitch marker back into that second stitch from the hook. Continue on, 1 single crochet, 3 single crochets, 1 single crochet, 3, and so on. I'll see you at the end, and we are gonna have to start our buttonholes. And the last 5 stitches are into the back loop, single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, so we have made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows at this point, and this is where we're going to start our buttonholes. Now, first of all, you need to choose the side where you are going to have it. So for boys, you usually have your buttonholes on the right hand side right here, and for girls you have it on the left side right here. It doesn't make a difference. It's exactly the same. We just leave the last 2 or the first 2 or the last 2 depending on the row. Okay, normal single crochets, then we make 2 chains and a single crochet, and then if you have it at the end of the row, you're gonna have a back loop single crochet, chain 2 and 2 back loop single crochets, and you're gonna have the buttonhole. So I'm gonna show both ways now, because I'm making this it's either for a girl or it's a neutral. So I'm gonna make it on the left hand side, my buttonhole right here. Okay, so this is how it goes. You're going to chain 1 and turn. You make first 2 single crochets into the back loop. So 1 and 2 single crochets into the back loop, chain 2, 1 and 2, skip 2 stitches, and into the 5th stitch into the back loop you make your single crochet, and here you go, you have a buttonhole. Then you are going to start your pattern with the cluster stitch. You always start your cluster or the pattern rows with a cluster after the first 5 single crochets, and then single crochet, cluster and single crochet, and so on. Now if you need your buttonhole at the end of this row, I will show you how to do this as well. I just need to get myself to the other side first. So again, I have a cluster and stitch marker out. I have a single crochet this time in the corner stitch, and I'm just gonna mark that stitch. Okay, so keep going, swapping around those 2 stitches, and I will see you at the end. Okay, so I'm finishing this row, and I'm gonna show you how to make a buttonhole if you need it on the other side. So once you make your last cluster and you have 5 stitches left, you make a back post, or excuse me, back loop single crochet. Then you're gonna chain 2. You are going to skip 2 stitches into the second last back loop single crochet, and into the last one back loop single crochet. So as you can see, it doesn't really make a difference which side you have it on, just it's very important that you don't forget them. And I will be making my buttonholes in every 8th row from now on. So I'm gonna have 7 rows in between my buttonholes. Now you can decide and do them excuse me, you can do them more often. That's what I wanted to say. You can do it, you can have 5 rows in between, 7 or even 9, and they will be further apart. Okay, so whatever you decide. So let's see what are we gonna do with those chains right here now. So it is very simple. You're gonna chain 1 and turn, start in the back loop, 1 in the back loop, 2, then you have your 2 chains, and just go into the chains and a single crochet into each of them, and there should be 1 more, so 5 single crochets, and then you continue on with your pattern. Okay, so normal single crochets, 3 single crochets into corners now because it's a single crochet row, and if you have it on the other side, you come back post single crochet, single, back, excuse me, back loop. I keep mixing it up because I'm making something with back post double crochets now, so I keep mixing them up. So back loop, single, back loop, single, back loop, single. Okay, does that make sense? And then I'm gonna have 7 rows without buttonholes in between, and I will be coming back and I will be reminding you all the time, so you don't forget to make those buttonholes, because it's really easy to forget, and then you have to take a lot of apart to put in that buttonhole. Okay, so hopefully you got the hang of the stitch right now. Okay, so of the 2 repeat rows that we keep going. Now we keep repeating this until the back part is going to be wide enough for our chest. I'm just gonna give you a quick look. Okay, so this is the A. So this is the chest measurement. Okay, so you look up the age that you're making it for and letter A. So I'm making for 3 to 6 months, and it should be 26 centimeters in length. Okay, so just the back part, stitch marker to stitch marker. And when you're measuring, you have to make sure that you have a cluster row underneath. Okay, so when you finish your cluster rows, I'm gonna grab your measuring tape from stitch marker to stitch marker. I am at 19 centimeters now. I need this to be approximately 26, so I have to keep going. It will get wider and wider and wider, and I just need to catch that moment when I'm either really close to my 26 centimeters, like half a centimeter away, or I am at the 26. Okay, so I'll come back and I will show the whole thing to you again. I just wanted to make sure that you understand that you just keep going. Okay, so this is the time that I'm going to do my other buttonhole. So this is just a reminder, and I will show you how I count out the rows in between. Okay, so I want to leave 7 rows in between my buttonholes. So this is a buttonhole, and this is row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So after 7 rows, I'm gonna have another buttonhole. So chain 1, exactly the same. So I have it on this side, so I end up doing it in the beginning of the row. If you have it on the other side, just like you did on the first one, you do exactly the same. So chain 1 and turn and back loop, single crochet 1, back loop, single crochet 2, chain 2, skip 2 stitches into the back loop of the 5th single crochet, we close the buttonhole, and I have my pattern row now. So I'm not quite yet at the chest measurement, so I will keep going and I will see you once this is wide enough for me. Just don't forget your buttonholes. Okay, so I am ready to connect my yoke. Now, the first thing is when you measure that you have to have a cluster row right here. Okay, so we all connect with single crochet row. Then I'm gonna quickly show this again. You're looking at the A for your size that you're making. So I'm making 3 to 6 months, so 26 centimeters right here. Okay, so from one stitch marker to another, it's approximately 26.5. Absolutely perfect. It can be a little bit under, a little bit over, or exactly that. It does not make a big difference. Okay, so you're a little bit over or a little bit under, it's okay. Now when we reach that length, and we have to start our single crochet row. So we still keep those 5 into the back loop in the front and at the start and at the end of each row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then, as normal with single crochets, we need to get to our first stitch marker. Now it doesn't matter how many rows you had, it's just very important that the measurement at the back is reached, or just about a little bit under. Okay, so all the way to the stitch marker, every stitch. Now where the stitch marker is, we're going to put in 1 single crochet. We are going to chain 1. This is going to be the sleeve, so we skip all this. Find your next stitch marker and single crochet into that stitch where your stitch marker is. So just like that, and we have a sleeve. And then continue on with 1 single crochet into each stitch until you get to your next stitch marker. My next stitch marker, so exactly the same, single crochet, chain 1, skip all that is going to be a sleeve, and into the next stitch marker, single crochet, and then just finish the row as usual. And my last 5 are in the back loop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Chain 1, turn and start again, back loop, and I will see you right here. So you just do the clusters as we always did. I will just meet you at the chain 1 right here. Okay, so I'm getting close to my chain 1, so nothing really special there. You just keep going, whatever you have to do with your pattern. Okay, so you just look at that chain 1 as a normal stitch. So just like that, and we have connected our yoke. So you're gonna do exactly the same right here, nothing really special. You just keep going with swapping around the single crochet and the cluster stitch. So, and then we need to make up a little bit of length on the body part right here, so we can do a little bit of increasing. Okay, so we don't have any more corners left. This is getting easier now. So the rows are just gonna go front and back, no more stitch markers for a little while. Keep your eye on your buttonholes, make sure you don't skip them. It is very annoying to have to frog it just because you forgot a buttonhole. So the next step is to make our body a little bit longer and do a little bit of increasing just somewhere underneath the waist area. So it kind of has this widening shape at the bottom because we have to take into consideration the nappy and perhaps other clothing that the baby is going to have. So this is where we're going to look at the measurement B. Okay, so 17, 19, 21, or 23 centimeters down, and that is, we measure from the back right here, So I am at just under the 14 centimeters. I need to go down a little bit more, so 19 or lower down. Okay, so I have another 5 centimeters or a little bit more to go lengthwise, and I will do a little bit of increasing. So the same to you. You might, the bigger the size, the lower down you have to get. For now, like I have mentioned, we just do those 2 rows, front and back, until we are a little bit lower down. Don't forget your buttonholes, and I will see you in a few minutes. Okay, so I have made my way down. I'm approximately at 20 and a half centimeters down. Absolutely perfect, as long as you're at or a little bit under the measurement is absolutely fine. Okay, so now we are going to do a little bit of increasing. Now we need free stitch markers. I'm just gonna take these out from here. 2 and 1 more. 3. Okay, so place it like this, and you want to find an approximate middle under your armhole right here. It doesn't matter if you mark your single crochet or the cluster stitch. By the way, I might have forgotten to mention, you need to be on a cluster row. You know, you just need to be finished with a cluster row, and we do the increasing on the single crochet row. So I think this is the middle under the armhole. 1 and under the other armhole, so this right here. And then we want to find another one approximately in the very middle at the back. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to count how many clusters I have right here at the top. So I have before the corners. So the corner ones are already twisted to the side a little bit, okay? So you want to find the one that is straight. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4 will be the middle. So in between the 4 and the 4. So this right here, again, it just has to be approximate, just approximately in the middle. Okay, so once we have the free stitch markers in, we are going to make our way to our first stitch marker, and we should be making single crochet row. So chain 1 and turn. First 5 are in the back loop still. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The rest are usual. Now what we want to start our increasing 6 stitches before the stitch marker. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on this one right here. So all that is just single crochets. Okay, so I have 6 stitches left to my stitch marker. Okay, so see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So in the 6th from the stitch marker, we make 2 single crochets. Then we make the next 3 single crochets, 1 into each stitch. Okay, so this is 2 single crochets in the same stitch. Then it's 1 into the next stitch, 1 and 1, so 3 in the row. Then we're gonna make 2 single crochets again, 1 and 2. So we did an increase right here and right here. In between it's just 1 single crochet. Now it's not a big deal if you make them closer or closer to the stitch marker. I just want to spread them a little bit apart so we don't get that little bump look. Okay, so then we should have 1 stitch before the stitch marker. That is 1 single crochet. Then where the stitch marker was, that's a 1 single crochet, and one more in the next one. So again we have a 3 single crochets in a row, 1 into each stitch. Then into the next stitch 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. Next 3 stitches are 1 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, and then we put 2 single crochets to finish. So we actually made 4 increases and we have 3 single crochets in between them. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 3 single crochets in between them. Now we want to do the same with the next stitch marker. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I only have 2 single crochets in between, and then I start again, 2 single crochets. Then the next 3 are 1 into each stitch, 1, 2, and 3. Then 2 single crochets again, 1 and 2 in the same stitch, and then 1 single crochet, stitch marker out, that's 1 and 1 more. Okay, again we made 3 in a row. Then 2 single crochets into that same stitch. The next 3 are 1 single crochet, 1, 1, and 1, and then 2 single crochets. So again we have 4 increases at the back, and then again we have 1 more stitch marker. Again we count 6 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I have 2 stitches in between. I'm just gonna make 1 single crochet into each of those. So this is the 6th from the stitch marker. So 2 single crochets, then 1, 1, 1, 2 single crochets, then 1, we have the stitch marker, I'm going to take that out, 1, 1, then 2 single crochets, 1, 2, then the next 3 are 1 single crochet, 1, 1, 1, and 2 single crochet. Again 4 increases right here with 3 single crochets in between them. There's 4 increases right here with 3 single crochets in between the increases, and the same right here. You just spread them out a little so they are not really close to each other. And then we finish as usual. Don't forget your buttonholes. Very, very important. Okay, so finish this row, start the next one, and I'm gonna see you approximately here where the increases are. Okay, so here we are. So you do what we usually do with the cluster row, nothing special. The only thing that I wanted to show you right here is that you might notice that the clusters are not lining up at some points. That is because of our increasing, okay? So this will be the only row that does that. After that, it's gonna fall into places and you're gonna have these straight lines again. But for now, you just keep going. So don't worry about them not lining up. It is what it is. It will be slightly noticeable, very, very little though. Okay, so we now keep going with the pattern until we reach the length where we need to connect our bottom part right here. So this is the C length. So I'll look up the C, and it is 33 centimeters in length for me. So 29, 33, 37, or 41. 33. Again, we measure that from the back of the neck, from this part. Okay, I'm at 22, so I need another 11 centimeters, so approximately this much. So I will just keep going. It will get a little bit wider than it was before. So I'll see you when we are at that length. Okay, and so I am at my length and I'm ready to connect the bottom right here. So to check the length, I'm not gonna pull on it, I'm just spreading it out just so it lies down flat. Again, just a quick reminder, so we're looking for this length, so 33 centimeters for me, or a little bit more. Better do it longer than shorter, so I'm at approximately 33 and a half. And we have to have the cluster row last, okay? So we finish with a cluster row. Okay, so the next thing is that you need to find the very middle stitch at the back. So count your stitches and you should have an odd number. So I had 77 stitches in total. That's including the 5 here and the 5 on the other side. So I divided that into 2 and I ended up with 38 and 39. So the bigger number, 39, is the number that I have marked. So once you mark that, you're gonna have the same number of stitches to one side and the same number of stitches to the other side, okay? So now for connecting, where you finish, so that will be on your let me see, that is going to be on your right hand side right here, okay? Now that panel, that side of the panel is going to have the buttons on my onesie. I have the buttonholes on the other one, and I have to say I have ended up with 4 buttonholes, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The 5th would have been just here if I had another few rows, but it's okay. I'm happy with 4, not a problem at all. Okay. So what you want, now we're going to make 5 double crochets, crocheting the 2 panels together, the ribbing right here, okay? So we will crochet that together. The main thing is make sure that the side with the buttonholes is on top, okay? So my buttonholes are here, so I place it like this. If your buttonholes are on this side, you're gonna have to place it on top like this, okay? So now, because this side where my yarn is at the bottom, I'm just gonna count 5 stitches back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go into the full stitch, pull the loop through. I just connect those 2 sides, okay? So if you're doing it on the other side, you're just gonna have to pull that loop like this, just the other way around, so they are just on top of each other. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pull it through and chain 2. Now that is going to count as our first double crochet, and we are gonna have 5 of them. So then yarn over, go into the second stitch on one side, and make sure that you go into the second one on the other side and make a double crochet. Now number 3 and 3, number 4 and 4 on the other side, and number 5, so the very last ones. So just like that, we have a double crochet row and it is connecting. Now we're gonna chain 2 and turn. We're gonna make another row of double crochets. Now the chain 2 counts as the first double crochet, so we skip that very first stitch, go into the second one, make a double crochet, that's 2, into the next stitch, double crochet, that's 3, into the next, that is 4, and our double crochet number 5 goes into the top of the chain 2 at the very end. Okay, so here we go. Now we need to join to the other side. To do that, we are going to pull it inside out. So the joining is on the inside of your onesie. So I'm just gonna do this. So I'm looking at the inside like that, okay? So this is what we're going to do. We're gonna slip stitch this side to this side, okay? So this is the very, where we have the stitch marker, it is the very middle stitch, and we will join stitch number 3 to this marked stitch. So to start, we start 2 stitches down, okay? So 1 and 2. Pull that out and chain 1. Now I'm gonna go into that second stitch, and I'm gonna find the second stitch on the other side and slip stitch. Now the marked stitch, I'm gonna take that marker out, and it has to be the third stitch on the other side, or the very middle one. Slip stitch the next one, and one more. The last goes into the chain 2 on the other side, into the top of that, and slip stitch, chain 1, and cut your yarn. So I will be finishing my part 1 right here. We will still have a lot to do in part 2, but it's going to be a little easier, I think, because the leg parts are going to be both gonna be exactly the same, so I can only show you one and then you match the second one. The same with the sleeves, and the hood is just a lot of work, which is not that difficult, okay? So here we are. This is where our legs are gonna go. We're gonna start part 2 with the legs right here. Then we're gonna do the sleeves, and then we will finish off with the hood. Now, thank you very much for watching. I will see you in part 2, and hopefully it was not too difficult for you. Okay? So, right, I'm gonna see you in a day.